Hello Year 8. So this lesson we're going to start by looking at Africa before slavery. So last lesson you did some work on slavery in general and its history, and this lesson we're going to be thinking about what Africa was like before this happened. So the aims for this lesson are hopefully that you will know at least two things about life in Africa before slavery. Most of you will also understand the differences and similarities between Africa and Europe before slavery, and some of you will understand how to assess the reliability of someone called Olaudah Equiano as a historical source. First thing I want you to do is pause the video and write down the first thing that comes into your head when you think of Africa, just in a sentence. It doesn't have to be loads and loads of detail. Fantastic. So sadly at this point we would share our ideas in the lesson, but we are not doing a live lesson at the minute. So the first thing I want to do is address any misconceptions we have, because this is something that even some adults I know get wrong. Now, Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent. So if you look at this map, it shows you Europe in the dark red, Asia is the orange, Australia is the purple, and Africa is this yellow continent here, and it's made up of lots of little individual countries. You also get an idea of the scale of Africa as a continent when you compare it on this map to, for example, Britain, a country that we know fairly well. So this lesson we're going to be focusing particularly on a place called Mapungubwe, which can be found in Zimbabwe. Africa itself, though, is made up of 53 countries, 47 mainland countries and 6 little island countries as well. So it is a big place. And anything that people say or claim about Africa is not likely to be a reasonable claim, because it's such a big place with so many diverse peoples and ideas and beliefs across it. It would be like saying everyone in Europe was a certain way. So it's very difficult for us to get an idea of exactly what Africa was like before slavery, but we can focus on a few specific places, and that's what we're going to do this lesson. So this question is a fairly easy question to answer. What is this and where might it be from? Now, in the context of this lesson, it's fairly obvious that it was found somewhere in Africa. If you look closely, you can see that this is a golden rhino. It's a figure made out of gold. So, the golden rhinoceros. The discovery of gold in stone ruins north of the Limpopo River in the 1890s attracted treasure hunters to the Limpopo River Valley. They found a graveyard that had a separate area for the elites of society. So that's the most important people in society had their own separate area of the graveyard. The bodies in 3 of these graves were built in the upright seated position associated with royalty, with a variety of gold and copper items, exotic glass beads and other objects. These finds provide evidence not only of the early mining of gold in South Africa, but of the extensive wealth and social differentiation or classes. You have different groups of people based on who they are and how important they are at this time, of the people of Mapungubwe. Most spectacular among these finds is a gold foil rhinoceros moulded over what was likely a soft core of sculpted wood. So they've created like a wooden sculpture and then they've moulded the gold around it to create this rhino. So what I'd like you to do is answer this question in the white box. What can we learn about life in Africa from the golden rhino? We can learn that the fact that it was found in a something means, and the types of graves tell us. Those are the kind of sentences I want you to be writing. You've got loads of information on here to help you do this. Pause the video now to do that and give yourself about 5 minutes. Fantastic. You should have finished that task by now. Thank you. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a piece of text. If you can annotate this, fantastic. If you just want to listen along, that's also fine. I'm going to read through it with you though. So here I've given you some tips about how to annotate things. So you might want to pause the video, have a read through those and make sure you've got them clearly in your head. A couple of the most important things are to avoid writing one-word comments when you're annotating things. And a really useful thing to do is identify the meaning of any words that you don't recognise. So you can circle it on the text and then do a little arrow coming off and explain what that word means. That's a really helpful way for you to annotate a piece of text. So this is the first page that you should be looking at home. If you've got the Word document, fantastic. If you haven't, you can just keep watching this video. So many Europeans thought that Africa's history was not important. They argued that Africans were inferior to Europeans, and they used this to help justify slavery. However, the reality was very different. A study of African history shows that Africa was by no means an inferior continent to Europe. For example, Egypt was the first of many great African civilizations. It lasted thousands of years and achieved many incredible things in the fields of science, mathematics, medicine, technology, and the arts. Egyptian civilization was already over 2,000 years old by the time the city of Rome was built in Europe. Also, culture. Art, learning and technology flourished, and Africans were especially skilled in subjects like medicine, mathematics and astronomy, as well as domestic goods. They made fine luxury items in bronze, ivory, gold and terracotta for both local use and trade to sell across the world. The peoples of West Africa had a rich and varied history and culture long before European slavers arrived. They had a wide variety of political arrangements, including kingdoms, city-states, and other organisations, each with their own languages and culture. Similarly, in Europe, there were many languages and systems of government and monarchy. The Empire of Songhai and the kingdoms of Mali, Benin, and Congo were large and powerful, with royalty heading governments governing hundreds of thousands of subjects. In other areas, governments were smaller and weaker, relying on agreement between people at village level. Like in warring Europe, the power between groups was constantly changing. And this is the second page. So, trade. West Africans had traded with Europeans through merchants in North Africa for centuries. The first traders to sail down to the West African coast were the Portuguese in the 15th century. Later, the Dutch, British, French, and Scandinavians followed. They were mainly interested in precious items such as gold, ivory, and spices, particularly pepper. Trade was important all across the world at this time, and was how the majority of wealthy people made their money. In the west of Africa, the Kingdom of Ghana was a vast empire that had spread across an area the size of Western Europe. It traded in gold, salt, and copper. It was like a medieval European empire with a collection of powerful local rulers controlled by one king or emperor. Ghana was highly advanced and prosperous, so that means they're making a lot of money. It said that the Ghanaian ruler had an army of 200,000 men. Finally, we've got some quotes from someone called Alada Equiano. So Alada Equiano was an abolition campaigner, so that's someone who wanted to end slavery. He was also someone who was taken from Africa to America to be used as a slave, and he bought his freedom in a way that the vast majority of slaves were not able to do. But after he did that, he learnt to write, and he wrote lots of records that we use today. As our manners are simple, our luxuries are few. The dress of both sexes is nearly the same. It generally consists of a long piece of calico or muslin wrapped loosely around the body, somewhat in the form of a Highland plaid. This is usually dyed blue, which is our favourite colour. It is extracted from a berry and is brighter and richer than any I have seen in Europe. Besides this, our women of distinction wear golden ornaments, which they dispose with some profusion on their arms and legs. When our women are not employed with the men in tillage, their usual occupation is spinning and weaving cotton, which they afterwards dye and make into garments. They also manufacture earthen vessels, of which we have many kinds. Among the rest, tobacco pipes, made after the same fashion, and used in the same manner as those in Turkey. And you've got a final quote there that I'll let you read through yourselves as well, that gives you some information about his experiences of what things were like there. So these are the tasks that go with that. So all of us are going to read through the worksheet, which hopefully you've already done. And then you're going to explain why people might not know about Africa's interesting history before slavery, and give at least 2 reasons. Okay, then some of you may create this table that shows the similarities and differences, and there's a super task as well if you finish that. You're going to pause the video and give yourself about 15 minutes now to get as much of that done as you can. Okay, fantastic. You should have finished that now. So that is the end of the lesson. Thank you very much, guys.